Let's dive in, shall we? I'm going to read some verses from Hebrews. There's nothing on, sorry to know, there's nothing there, so thank you anyway. Because we're going to be running around the Bible a lot. Are you up for running around the Bible a lot? I know you, do you know something? You're going to hear my voice in your dreams tonight because you've heard nothing but my voice for the next 2 hours. I'm sorry about that. You're meant to go, no, that's okay. Right, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Faith is the confidence that we hope for will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things we cannot see. Through their faith, the people in days of old earned a good reputation. And then we jump to 23 to 29. It was by faith that Moses' parents hid him from 3 months when he was born. They saw that God had given them an unusual child, and they were not afraid to disobey the king's command. It was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to share the oppression of God's people instead of enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin. He thought it was better to suffer for the sake of Christ than to own the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking ahead to his great reward. It was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He kept right on going because he kept his eyes on the one who is invisible. It was by faith that Moses commanded the people of Israel to keep the Passover and to sprinkle blood on the doorposts so that the angels of death would not kill their firstborn's son. It was by faith that the people of Israel went right through the Red Sea as though they were on dry ground. But when the Egyptians tried to follow, they were all drowned. Moses, a great man of faith, according to Hebrews, yes? Great man of faith. Look at what he accomplished. He refused to live in luxury. He looked to his long-term future. He did not fear the king or Pharaoh of Egypt's anger when he left Egypt, maybe for the first time, maybe for the second time. Commentators are torn about what's meant there. And he had great faith when he commanded the people, put blood on the doorposts and the angel of death will not come near you. A great man of faith, yes? Showing no fear, yes? Hang on a minute. Hasn't Hebrews been redacted? Hasn't it been edited slightly? Hasn't there been a bit of airbrushing of our Moses? There's no mention at all of his great feat of faith in the minute that he was called by God to go and release the people. I'll show you again. We've gone from his parents having faith and disobeying Pharaoh's command. We have Moses refusing to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, and he left. And then it jumps basically straight to the moment that Moses commanded the people to leave Israel. Let me take you back to Exodus. Chapter 2, verse 11 to 17. Many years later, when Moses had grown up, he went out to visit his own people, the Hebrews, and he saw how hard they were forced to work. During his visit, he saw an Egyptian beating one of his fellow Hebrews. After looking in all directions to make sure no one was watching, Moses killed the Egyptian and hid the body in the sand. I just want you to envisage that for a minute. So he's just making sure, checking, nobody's looking. Bury him, yeah? The next day, when Moses went out to visit his people again, he saw 2 Hebrew men fighting. Why are you beating up your friend? Moses said to the one who had started the fight. The man replied, who appointed you our prince and judge? Are you going to kill me as you killed that Egyptian yesterday? Then Moses was afraid, thinking, everybody knows what I did. And sure enough, Pharaoh heard what had happened and he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian. Great man of faith, yes? No fear, yes? Well, it said in Hebrews. Haven't finished yet. But this is an amazing bit about our Moses. When Moses arrived in Midian, he sat down beside a well. Now, the priest of Midian had 7 daughters who came as usual to draw water and fill the water troughs for their father's flocks. But some other shepherds came and chased them away. So Moses jumped up and rescued the girls from the shepherds. Then he drew water from their flocks. So, hang on. So let's get this right. We have Moses. I want you to try and envisage this just for a minute if you can. We've got Moses, okay? He's living the life of luxury in Pharaoh's palace, yeah? He wants for nothing. But clearly from the Exodus story there, he knows he's really an adopted. He knows he's from the people of Israel. So go down to check them out. Sees the oppression of his people. His own people. He sees that something's wrong, so double checks. He's a prince, don't forget, of Egypt. Yet double checks and makes sure that nobody's probably watching. Bumps off the Egyptian guard, which is, by the way, penalty of death for doing that. Buries him. Of course, next day, these own people tell him, who do you think you are? You're a nobody as far as we're concerned. You're not one of us, basically. And so he panics because he realises he's in trouble. And quite rightly, the Pharaoh tries to get him killed because the death penalty's there, that's it. So he does a runner. Now you think, oh, fear. Yet, when a bunch of shepherds come to attack some women that he doesn't even know, he's a brave man again. He chases them off in his own strength, isn't that? Have you seen that? Now, I wonder why that is. Maybe as a prince of Egypt, he's been taught in how to fight. Yeah? How to defend himself. How to wield a sword. How to get into a good scuffle and and how to take people out and high kick them and your balance is all right, we're okay. But that's quite something, isn't it? Just interesting. He seems to be a man of two different personalities, 2 different ways of looking at life. Let's carry on. So we seem to have what I would consider fear, bravery in that one moment. Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 to 14. One day, Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock far into the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. This is amazing, Moses said to himself. Why isn't that bush burning up? I must go and see it. When the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush, Moses, Moses. Here I am, Moses replied. Do not come any closer, the Lord warned. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. When Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. God is holy. God is hallowed. Then the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt into their own land, fertile and spacious land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites now live. Look, the cry of my people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how harshly the Egyptians abuse them. Now go, For I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt. Now you've just heard God tell you, or this strange, amazing act of the burning bush that's not really burning. You've just heard this voice tell you who he is, what he has seen the cry of his people, which would have been in Moses' own heart. He don't forget, he saw the oppression. By the way, he's been in Midian by now 40 years. Okay, so he left Egypt 40 years ago. So he knows what God is talking about. And he says, and I am giving them this land. Now, you see a bush that's not burning and you've got a voice talking to you from this bush. I don't know about you, but I might start believing some of the words that are coming out of the bush. Yeah? There's something a bit weird here. This looks a bit powerful. Maybe I should need to listen to these words. So if these words are saying, I am the God of and all three, and he would recognise that for what it means, and I'm going to give my people this land of milk and honey that is basically being run and owned at the moment by all these enemies, but I'm giving it to them, you might go, well, there might be some truth in this, because this bush is not burning up. This voice could be telling some truth. No? Huh? Might run. Well, we'll come to him in a moment. But just an interesting concept. But Moses protested to God, who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt? Notice he didn't go, I don't believe you're going to do that. All he said was, who am I? God answered, I will be with you. And this is a sign that I am the one who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain. So not if and when you bring the people out, it's when you bring the people of Egypt out, you will be back in this very mountain worshipping. But Moses protested, if I go to the people of Israel and tell them the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And then we're going to go to 4:1-17. But Moses protested again. What if they don't believe me or listen to me? What if they say the Lord has never appeared to you? Then the Lord asked him, what is in your hand? A shepherd's staff, he said. Throw it down on the ground, the Lord told him. So Moses threw down the staff and it turned into a snake. Moses jumped back. Snakes, anyone? Then the Lord told him, reach out and grab its tail. So Moses reached out and grabbed it, and it turned back into a shepherd's staff in his hand. Perform this sign, the Lord told him. Then they will believe that the Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, really has appeared to you. Then the Lord said to Moses, now put your hand inside your cloak. So Moses put his hand inside his cloak, and when he took it out again, his hand was white as snow with severe skin disease. Now put your hand back into your cloak, the Lord said. So Moses put his hand back in. And when he took it out again, it was healthy as the rest of his body. Then the Lord said to Moses, if they do not believe you and are not convinced by the first miraculous sign, they will be convinced by the second sign. And if they don't believe you or listen to you, or even after these two signs, and take some water from the Nile River and pour it out onto dry ground, when you do, the water from the Nile will turn to blood on the ground. Now, at this point, imagine yourself there. So your staff, all over there, I haven't got one. But your staff that you've carried for probably nearly 40 years as a shepherd, you know this staff, yeah? You know it really, really well. It's got damage in it. It's got nooks and crannies in it. You know this staff. Yeah, you've probably beaten some cattle and all that. Do you know what I mean? You know this staff. You stick it on the ground, it turns into a snake. Just get your head around that. How would you feel right now? You might step back, snake. No. What's that snake been living in there all this time? At home we got a didgeridoo. You know, one of these Australian didgeridoos, yeah? Yeah, whenever we go to grab it, just to muck about to blow into it, because I can't play it for love nor money, but occasionally I like the one sound, because it's noisy. I like it coming out, so I into it. But I always check, make sure there's no spiders. I'd rather that than it going in my mouth. But you imagine that staff going down. And then you pick it up and it turns back into a staff. I don't know about you, would you be a bit awed? A bit like, oh, that works. Oh, I better believe this burning bush a little bit that's not burning. And then you stick your hand inside, and out it comes, not a bunch of flowers, but leprous. Sorry, I've got this thing, bunch of flowers. Only some people are going to get, unless you're into an old comedy act, bunch of flowers. No, leprous hand. You got to, yeah? Did I put talcum powder in there? I don't remember. No? Leprous hand. Then you stick it back in, and it comes back out, and it's healthy as the rest of the body. Wouldn't you at that point really believe in, okay, staff, hand, really better believe this burning bush, yeah? Yeah? Would yeah? So when this burning bush is saying, go and do this, and here's some miracles to prove to you that you're going to prove to the people that I'm real and I've spoken to you, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? Do it. I'm off. I think there's the help. And what do we get? We get this. But Moses pleaded with the Lord. Oh Lord, I'm not very good with words. I've never have been. And not now. Even though you have spoken to me, I get tongue-tied and my words get tangled. So I know how he feels. Then the Lord asked Moses, who puts a person's mouth? Who decides whether people speak or do not speak? Hear or do not hear? See or do not see? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you in what to say. Now, what would you say at that point? I'm going. You promised to speak through me. You promised. Forget. There's the truth in the fact that probably Moses did have a speech impediment. But go, he says. But what does Moses say? Pleaded, Lord, please send someone else. Okay, hands in the air. Who's been that cry to the Lord? Please send somebody. See, at least there's one honest sister in the room. And a few honest brothers who are just sort of going like this. So then... then the Lord became angry with Moses. All right, he said. What about your brother Aaron the Levite? I know he speaks well. And look, he's on his way to meet you now. He will be delighted to see you. Talk to him and put the words in his mouth. I will be with both of you as you speak, and I will instruct you both in what to do. Aaron will be your spokesman to the people. He will be your mouthpiece, and you will stand in the place of God for him, telling him what to say. Now take your shepherd's staff with you and use it to perform the miraculous signs I have shown you. What is going on with Moses? This is a real question. What is the constant protesting all about? What is going on with Moses? What is this constant protesting all about? This is a real question for you to think about.
Could it be fear that someone will recognize him from what he did before, and how are people going to believe him?
Yeah, fear, cool.
It's not that he doesn't believe in God. He kind of doesn't believe in himself.
going to leave it at that, because that's it. His whole opening gambit is, who am I? Right from the beginning. Who am I to go to Pharaoh? Who am I to go to the people of Israel? Who am I? He's afraid. All his protesting is about actually how he is viewed. Or more importantly, it's how he views himself. Who am I to appear before a ruler? Who am I to go to a people who barely I know and barely know me? In chapter 4, verse 1, he says they won't believe me. Basically, the Israelites won't accept me. Verse 10 is, I have a speech problem. I'm not perfect. I have effectively, as far as we can make out, what we would now class today as some form of a disability. And then we get to verse 13. I am petrified. By the way, just a quick side note. I do like this line that he says, Lord, please send anyone else. Lord. Now, the interesting thing is Lord is probably not Lord as we would go Yahweh. It's more probably Adonai. So he hasn't quite recognised fully at the moment that he is God. Does that make sense? But still, you can't say to someone, Lord, as in you're my boss or my manager, if you're then saying, send somebody else. How can somebody be your Lord if you're not doing as they've asked you to do? Your actions prove that how you view the person that's speaking to you. Does that make sense? That just made me laugh just a little bit on that one. But it is. For here, Moses' problem is that he's focused on him, not on God. He's focused on his own abilities, not on God's. He's focused on his fears, not on God's authorities. He's focused on how people view him, not how God views him. He's focused on what he looks like and sounds like, not what God looks like and sounds like. He's focused on preserving his life, not on the life-giving God. It's all about him, not about him. Come with me to another character. 2 Samuel, chapter 6, verses 12 to 15. Then King David was told, the Lord has blessed Obed-Edom's household and everything he has because of the ark of the God. So David went there and brought the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with great celebration. After the men who were carrying the ark of the Lord took 6 steps, David sacrificed a bull and a fattened calf. That was a long procession, by the way. Long time. And David danced before the Lord with all his might, wearing a priestly garment. So David and all the people of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouts of joy and the blowing of ram's horn. Now, this priestly garment, it's well known, would have literally just been cloth laid over with splits down the side. Now, for some people going out late at night, a split up to about here might be what you want to do. But when you are the king of Israel and you're about to go out dancing, now if you want to go out dancing and you want to attract some people to come and think you're attractive, you might wear a split up here and say, check out my leg. I haven't shaved in a long while, so I haven't done it in a long while. But when you are the king of Israel, and that's all you're wearing, are you with me? Yeah? And you're dancing before the Lord with all your might. Don't know if you've noticed, but it flares occasionally. So it all sort of, for want of a better phrasing, hangs out. He could well have wrapped it up, but he wouldn't have wrapped it up that tight. You don't know what we looked like, by the Hebrew, but what we think happened, he didn't care. The fact his own wife had a go at him, saying, oh, You, king, displaying yourself before all the women. That's what she says later on. I've just not read it all. Point being, he didn't care what he looked like. And what's the difference? Is it says he danced before the Lord. He didn't dance before the people. He danced before the Lord. His focus was on the Lord. It wasn't on what anybody else thought. He was in a place of worship, praise. The Ark of the Covenant, God present, is coming back into the people of Israel. And not that I'm advocating, by the way, very clearly wearing garments like that in the street and saying I'm dancing before the Lord. Let's make that very clear. But the point being, before the Lord, he's not worried. He's dancing before the Lord. He's focused on the Lord, not the people. He's focused on the Lord, not himself. He's focused on what the Lord wanted, not what on the people want. He was focused on adoring God, not on adoring himself. Yeah? Yet, in Hebrews 11, both Moses and David are classed as men of faith. So what's going on? For Moses, well, we know from David, we know right from his early days, from the minute he defeated Goliath, he knew that God was with him. Yes? Because he just said, well, I come before you in the name of the Lord of the heavens armies. I don't come before you as myself. I don't come before you as David and whatever his last name might have been, I can't remember. He comes before him in the name of the Lord's heaven armies. Moses' problem was, he was thinking all about him and what he can't do. All his protest was, well, because I can't do this. And it's almost like God is saying, congratulations, no, you can't. But I can through you. So why are you fearing? If I said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I mean, God was really gracious to him, showed him a whole bunch of miracles to try and prove the point. I have to say, probably right now in post hindsight, glad to say read that story. If I suddenly had one of them stars, put it on the ground, turn it into a snake, and I picked it up, I'd go, yeah, all right, I might believe that actually God will use me. Yeah? But also, this is another problem, I think, for Moses, and I think this is interesting, just very quickly, that a commentator, Dunham, put, and I love this bit. He was talking about some things that we can learn from this very matter, but this is the first truth. In the Christian, and he said, this is the bit that probably don't realise that we Christians get. We probably concentrate our reading properly. The first might surprise you, because most of us concentrate on all of the excuses Moses made, and finally really do not get down to the heart of the matter. The truth is this: in the Christian life, in our response to and relationship with God, most of us do not arrogantly aspire for too much. We sheepishly settle for too little. Moses ran away from Egypt in fear, went to Midian. For 40 years he spent in Midian. He's got married, he's had kids, yeah? He's got a life. It's a settled life. It's a nice life. It's not really demanding far too much of him. Yeah? So he's settled. And then God has this habit of coming along and upsetting the apple cart somewhat. And said, I'm actually calling you to go back to your people. Calling you back to the place. And I'm going to do this, and this through you. And here are some miracles to prove it. But rather than going, yes, I can imagine Moses is going, nah, it's all right. I'm quite happy over here, please, back in this old comfortable life. I don't need it to change. I don't need my life to change. This is okay. This is demanding nothing of me. I'm happy with being like this. And God is saying, but no, but through me, look at all of this. Look at all of this. Stop settling, Moses, for this. Look at this. Look what I can do through you. Stop being settled. Do we all remember this last week? Still got my footprints, yeah. So do you remember all this? So the point being, not being settled for what we want. Now I talked about my inner ear. Don't panic, we're all right. Why do we settle for sheepishly sitting down and not doing what God is calling us to do? When God has said, but I've got all this for you. I've got this and this and this and this. Why are you concentrating on you and your life now? Why are you worried about what you think you can't do? But actually, when you're in me, you can do all of this. Yeah? And that's what he's saying. Sorry, it's easier to walk back out this way. And this is what he's trying to say to Moses. I've got big things for you to do, to pull people out of slavery, to pull people out who are captives, to pull people out who are oppressed. And he's saying the same to us, my brothers and sisters. We may not go and release people who are captive to Egyptians, but they are captive to Satan. And he said, I've got all this stuff I can do through you. Why are you protesting? Why are you scared? Oh, because you're looking at you. And our first motto is what? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Yeah, we're back to don't be fear again because we are not learning it. Don't be afraid. Now, what I love about the Moses story is the reason that none of those exploits are talked about him being a great man of faith is because he was on a journey. At that point at the burning bush, he was on a journey of learning what it was to not fear and to have trust and faith in the Lord. So when it eventually came to the moment at the Red Sea, he had real faith in the Lord. But he had to go on that journey, or he had to go on that journey until it was that moment of putting the blood on the posts. And I think it was at that moment he trusted God no end. Fear was really gone. So if you're somebody who's been here in this church for a while and hearing all about this don't fear and stuff and thinking, when am I going to get it? You're probably on a journey, like we all are. I was on a journey last year with this, and I'm still on the journey. I'm in a much better place than I was a year ago. But the journey is this. God is saying to you, to us, I've got all of this. All of this. Why are you settling over here? Why are you settling? I've got this. Stop looking at yourself and thinking what you can't be or do. Stop saying like Moses, who am I? Because what God is saying is, I am who I am, and I can do this through you because I made you. Because I made you. Take a moment, allow God to speak. Just listen to God just for a minute for yourself. Might be a time for you now to sort of say to God, you know, yeah, I've allowed fear and I've packaged it as something else. If you look at the way that Moses protested, he protested through multiple reasons, but it ultimately came down to, please just send someone else. I'm scared. Because I think it's what I can do in me. And we can package things up neatly. I've heard people before now, Christians say, and I've said it myself in the past, I hasten to add, you know, oh, that's all right. It's all right that I didn't actually do as I was told there. God's always will send somebody else. He didn't send somebody else. He just sent Aaron along with Moses. It's not nice being plan A, is it? But that's what God might be saying to you. You're plan A in somebody else's life. And I've got all of this to show you. All of this. Feels like it's time for us to admit some home truths to ourselves about why we're resisting. Maybe this morning we need to respond to that, knowing that our Daddy in heaven, hallowed is his name, his kingdom come, his will be done, is here this morning. I use the phrase Daddy because still remembering he is love. But as any good parent, he disciplines those whom he loves. And he starts saying, come on, get on with it. Which parent or child has never heard their parents say, could you go and tidy your room, and said it about multiple times until they finally got on with it? God is like that with us sometimes. Patient, patient, patient. But then says, okay, now, come on. You've heard this enough times. Get on with it. Singers and musicians, we're going to sing one final song this morning. You might want to respond to this as a sense of, yeah, I am a child of God.
We do hope you've enjoyed and benefited from this presentation. To learn more about what the Bible teaches us and how to apply this to our everyday lives, check out our biblical teaching videos at gbcweb.tv.